Picture this. You're standing in front of a massive, practically impenetrable stone fortress. You've been bombarding it for 10 straight days with the absolutely most advanced artillery of your era, and you haven't even made a dent. Your troops are exhausted, and time is rapidly running out. Now, this isn't some scene from a fantasy movie. This is a very real historical puzzle from the 8th century. How do you break a city that literally cannot be physically broken? Well, the answer involves a giant red flag, a monstrous catapult named the Bride, and the ancient equivalent of a high-speed telegraph system.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving deep into a truly fascinating and incredibly complex military campaign that literally redrew the map of the 8th century world. Muhammad Bin Qasim's expedition into Sindh. We're going to look at the exact logistics, some totally brilliant battlefield engineering, and the sudden, politically driven collapse of this whole massive undertaking, all drawn directly from the historical accounts.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to follow this chronologically. We'll start with the spark of conflict, move through the breaching of Dibal Fort, look at an amazing high-speed communication network, cross the mighty Indus River, examine the governance post-conquest, and finally, unpack the sudden downfall of our young commander.
Part 1. The Spark of Conflict. Pirates and Politics.
So, where does a massive campaign like this actually begin? Well, it starts with pirates. Yeah, really. Pirates off the coast of Sindh had looted Umayyad ships and kidnapped the women on board, and when the local ruler, Raja Dahir, refused to intervene, the powerful governor, Hajjaj bin Yusuf, was absolutely furious. But here's the thing, this expedition almost didn't happen at all. The Caliph flat out refused to fund a new war in Sindh while they were already fighting a massively expensive war over in Spain. So Hajjaj proposes a wild deal. He promises to fund the entire expedition out of his own pocket, no imperial treasury money required. He basically said, if we lose, I will bear the entire loss myself. And with that financial risk off the table, the Caliph agreed.
Part 2. Breaching Dibal Fort, the impossible siege.
Hajjaj sends in a meticulously prepared force of 6,000 men, led by his brilliant young nephew, Muhammad Bin Qasim. But the moment they arrive at the heavily fortified city of Dibal, they hit a brick wall. Literally. For 10 long days, Qasim's forces batter the stone walls with absolutely zero success. But then, an informant reveals a secret. The city's actual defense wasn't the stone, it was psychological. High above the main temple flew this massive red flag. The locals truly believed that as long as that flag stood, they had divine protection. The city could never fall. Qasim realizes right then and there, he doesn't need to break their walls. He needs to break their morale by dropping that flag.
Now, hitting a flag up that high was practically impossible. It was completely out of range of standard artillery. So Qasim calls for his ultimate weapon. It was a catapult known throughout the empire as Dulan, or the Bride. And it was massive. We're talking 15 meters tall, requiring 500 men just to operate it, and capable of hurling a 50-kilogram block of stone over 300 meters. But here's the catch. Even with the Bride, Qasim's men kept missing the target.
Part 3. High-speed communication, the 8th century telegraph.
And this brilliantly illustrates one of the most mind-blowing logistical masterpieces of the era. I mean, think about it. How do you adjust artillery targeting when your commander-in-chief is thousands of miles away? Well, Hajjaj had set up relay stations every 20 kilometers between Iraq and Sindh. They kept fresh horses ready day and night. A messenger would ride full speed to the first station, hand off the letter to a new rider, and so on in a continuous chain. Because of this system, a letter could travel 2,500 kilometers in just 7 days. Qasim was literally sending maps and getting live tactical updates.
So when Qasim reports back that they just can't hit the flag, Hajjaj actually analyzes the battlefield maps, all the way from Iraq, and sends back precise instructions. The return letter simply commands Qasim to change the angle of the catapult by a specific degree and fire again. Qasim follows the order. The massive 50-kilogram stone flies through the air and snaps the flagpole in a single, perfect shot. And just as the informant predicted, the moment that giant red flag fell, total panic swept through the city. With their morale shattered and their supposed divine protection gone, the gates were quickly breached and Dibal was conquered.
Part 4. Crossing the Indus, the ultimate obstacle.
With Dibal finally taken, Qasim faced a serious ticking clock. Raja Dahir was waiting for him across the massive Indus River. Now, waiting for traditional bridging supplies to arrive would just give Dahir time to gather reinforcements. So Qasim engineers a solution on the fly. He gathers up every local boat he can possibly find, ties them all side by side with thick ropes, and lays wooden planks right across the top to create a flat marching surface. He then loads the front boats with his best archers, pushes the whole bridge into the river's current, and swings it across to the opposite bank under heavy cover fire. They secure the bridgehead, and just like that, his entire army crosses the mighty Indus.
The tactical matchup here was seriously daunting. Raja Dahir had a distinct numerical advantage, fielding 20,000 troops compared to Qasim's 15,000. But the real terror on the battlefield? Dahir's special unit, war elephants. You see, in previous expeditions, Arab horses had completely panicked at the sheer sight and smell of these elephants, which led to some really crushing defeats. Knowing this history perfectly well, Qasim prepared a specific countermeasure, highly specialized fire archers.
The climax of this battle was absolutely chaotic. According to the historical sources, when the elephants charged, Qasim ordered his men to ignite their arrows and attack the beasts from all sides. The flaming arrows terrified the elephants, sending them into a total panic. In the middle of all this chaos, Raja Dahir's own elephant was struck by a fire arrow and bolted straight toward the river to cool down. Seeing their king's elephant flee, the Hindu army naturally assumed Dahir was retreating, and their lines completely broke. Dahir actually did manage to turn back and fought incredibly bravely on foot, but he was ultimately struck down, securing a decisive victory for Qasim.
Part 5. Governance post-conquest. Policies and beliefs.
Following the battle, the historical texts give us some very specific details on the immediate aftermath. Upon hearing of Raja Dahir's death, the women in the royal fortress performed Jahor. This was a historical Hindu practice where women would walk into a massive fire to avoid capture by invading forces. Interestingly, the sources mention rumors that Dahir's wife, who led this act, may have actually been his sister in a complex political marriage meant to keep Sindh united, though historians do debate the exact accuracy of those specific accounts.
As for the wider population, Qasim basically decreed that everything will remain as it is. He went with a policy of administrative continuity. He implemented the jizya, which was a standard tax in the Islamic Empire, levied on non-Muslims. Paying this meant they received state protection and were exempt from military service. In return, the locals were granted total freedom to practice their religion, and importantly, the existing bureaucrats and local officers were kept right in their positions. Because hey, they understood the local systems best. Qasim also established a brand new city nearby, called Mansoura, which effectively became the first Islamic capital in Sindh.
Finally, Part 6, Sudden Downfall. Politics over Conquest.
Now, Qasim was a wildly successful commander on the ground, but history isn't just decided on the battlefield, right? It's usually decided in the capital. Back home, the Caliph, Walid, passed away, and his brothers seized the throne. Furious that the previous administration had supported a different heir, the new Caliph purged basically everyone loyal to the old regime. Despite his incredible military victories, Qasim was abruptly recalled to Iraq after just 3 years as governor. He was thrown into prison and, according to historical accounts, died from torture. This internal political infighting completely killed the empire's momentum in the east. It actually caused a 300-year pause in expansion in the region, right up until Mahmud Ghaznavi launched new campaigns centuries later.
It really leaves us with a haunting thought. Think about all that incredible momentum, the brilliant logistics, the 7-day communication lines, all of it undone in an instant by palace politics thousands of miles away. If Muhammad bin Qasim hadn't been purged by his own empire after just 3 years, how drastically different would the historical map of Asia look today? It's a pretty powerful reminder of how fragile historical momentum truly is. Thank you for exploring this with me today. Keep asking those big questions,